Good morning, my creative friends. Dr. Minette Riordan here. This is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette, where, yes, I am in my PJs. I've already been down here in my studio, I don't know, since for at least an hour working on a big painting, a commission painting that I'm working on, and super excited for new fall hours and feel like it's going to get me back in my groove a little bit. And we're going to have some change to those fall hours. So I wanted to start there. So starting this week, I will be going live at 7 a.m. Mountain Time instead of 8 a.m. Mountain Time. Sorry about that. I ate pizza last night, which always makes me a little uh, congested the next day, and I eat it anyway. But that doesn't matter. Neither here nor there. So 7 a.m. Mountain Time on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So just twice a week in the mornings, just looking to change things up. And I notice when I make changes that it just keeps me engaged. And I'm adding an evening time. It will still be painting in your PJs with Minette, but it'll be at 5 p.m. Mountain Time on Wednesday evenings or afternoons or mornings, depending on your time zone. And that will be in the description. I've stuck it in I'll stick it in my emails over a couple of times, but I will be here 3 times a week still, but it will be 7 a.m. Mountain Time Tuesdays and Thursdays and 5 p.m. Mountain Time on Wednesday evenings starting this week. And we'll see how it goes. I know it'll take people, including me, a while to catch up with the schedule, but as the mornings get cooler, I want to be down here while it's chilly and then get out for my walks after. So it feels like this juggling act, kind of like life and work. So if you're new to the show, welcome. I am Dr. Minette Riordan, and I am all about supporting women in midlife and beyond get out of that murky middle. So you're past the crisis stage, but you're kind of in that state of, I don't know who I am anymore. Well, I believe that we can use art, making, and writing as tools for self-discovery and personal growth and make that process a lot more fun and sometimes even a little bit quicker along the way as well. So wherever you are in your creative journey, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm going to go ahead and switch my camera. And throughout the month of August, I've been working on a deck of faces, loving where they're going. So I'm going to work on finishing up these 3 faces today. And here's some of the ones that I have finished up so far. There's some that are a little bit different. And I've learned some great lessons. I've learned a lot about my personal style. I've had a lot of fun with the drawing practice and the creation. Really love this wonky one of this deck of cards. Ended up tossing a few, ended up completely repainting a few, but I've had a lot of fun along the way in this process of self-discovery. And over the weekend, at some point when I had a few minutes, I drew a few more faces, and I'm kind of loving this process of drawing the faces first, almost as if I'm creating my own sort of mini little coloring pages here. And then also, by the time they're painted, I go back with the black at the end. That's sort of that distinctive primitive style or folk art style with those bold black lines that I've always really, really loved. And I took a class with an art teacher in Nova Scotia one summer years ago, and she needs a little bird of some kind sitting right here. And I think I don't know if I eventually kept the painting when we moved from California, but I learned so much about the simplicity of the style and am sort of feeling delighted and curious about really zeroing in on zeroing in on more of that sort of focus on that folk art style. Good morning, Marion. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for being here at the new time. And this one has an owl also. So I love owls, and I'm kind of sensing that maybe these cards are going to be inner wisdom guides, which occurred to me after spending a weekend leading a beautiful retreat about connecting to our inner wisdom. And so I'm loving where these are going, and I have a long way to go. I realize I think I have, like, by the time I'm done today, I'll have 15 cards. Currently, the deck awesome, Mary. Great to see you live. Thanks for joining me live. I'm happy to have you here. And I have a long way to go. So I'm not going to continue this publicly throughout the month of September, but I will be working on them behind the scenes because I'm still having fun and I'm committed to completing this deck. So I will work on them for the rest of this week. I'm going to get some pink going here. And then in September, we're going to, let's see, let's focus on getting this sweetie pie finished up. In the month of December, I want to work on botanicals. And I'm not even sure what I mean by that. So I still want to kind of continue to explore this sort of more folk art style, but what I know is that over the last decade or so, I've probably literally taken thousands and thousands and thousands of flower and nature photos of all kinds. And I wanted to do a project with them for a really long time. And so I'm thinking that that's going to be my focus for September, is going back through and finding a number of those photos and practicing sketching like I've done with the faces, painting them. Maybe I'll work in an art journal, but I will have decided by next Tuesday. And I've also created a Google Calendar that I will stick in the description so you'll know when I'm going live, what times, when I'm on vacation and not here. So if you're ever curious or wondering, why am I not here, it will be on that very public Google Calendar, and trying to get myself more organized. And Mary, right now I have a list of 32 concepts that I am working with. And let's see, I got to figure out where I'm going next with her. I have a list of 32 concepts that I am working with. And I'm going to start there. And I know once I get past the painting stage and into the stage of writing, like adding meaning to the cards, writing the descriptions and definitions, that I'll probably come up with more. But I'm going to start with my list of 32 concepts, which are all concepts currently that I've pulled from my Your Midlife Renaissance program, and are all kind of those things that either we would benefit from exploring more or listening more to our inner wisdom about, or they're concepts that I keep hearing people say, I need more of that, I need more of this. And I'm kind of wanting this guy to look a little bit like a barn owl, so I may have to go find a little picture to make sure that I get him kind of barn owl shaped. And they have kind of fat bodies. I have had some really truly magical encounters with barn owls over time. And let's just zoom in here a little bit more. And so the evening call that I'm adding on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Mountain Time will be the same format as the morning calls. As always, I encourage and invite people to play along, paint along, work on your own projects, and just be here together in community. Good morning, Blanca. Thank you for being here so early, mi querida amiga. I know it's very early over there on the West Coast. All right. Just felt like she needed some brightening up here. And I haven't decided, this doesn't quite feel like hair. It maybe feels like she has some kind of a funky head wrap on, and so it may get some patterns and more texture added to it, a little more drama. What are other people working on this morning? I'm always so curious. And how are you doing? Is it feeling like fall where you are? I know it's still temps over the hundreds in Texas, and I'm headed to Texas at the end of September for a week for a conference and to visit with my daddy. And I know it's still going to be hot then. And it's still getting quite warm here during the days, but when I go for my walks in the morning, there's that just little touch of coolness in the air that lets me know that spring or that fall is coming, that just feels, very, very different. All right, so I'm looking at her blouse. I like the green, but it needs another layer of paint. It's feeling a little bit patchy. It's been very interesting painting on these cards and the just sort of texture of them and noticing how they absorb paint and noticing how the paint does or doesn't go on very well. Okay, I made that mistake of got too much blue in there and not enough yellow, and I was wanting a little brighter green, and it's really hard to go back and brighten up a color. So when you're mixing with yellow, you always want to start with a lot of yellow and the tiniest little bit of either that blue or the red, because you can always add that darker color, but it's really hard to take it away. Okay, that feels better. Noticing that the paint has a lot of texture on this surface, which is just interesting. It's neither good nor bad. But it's been an interesting substrate to work on. So as you're working on your own art, really pay attention to what you're creating on, what the substrate is, just the surface, whether that's canvas or paper, whether you're working with collage or paint. Really pay attention to how you like the surface. Like I have an art group that I have a business mastermind with three other artists, and we have a really fun collaboration that we're working on that's going to come out this fall, probably in November. And we're starting with this really, really luscious Strathmore mixed media paper that like just gets me gleeful. It's like buttery soft and it takes all kinds of media really well. I need my owl to stand out a lot more, so he's going to maybe take a couple of layers here to cover up that blue. So just being, mindful of that. And every time I use one color somewhere, I want to go in again with just that little pop of color in a few other spots. In a bit of a rush with yard cleaning. Yep. It's funny because really we're just sort of at the height of the growing season here. Like my tomatoes are just now turning red, in large part because we've had so much rain this summer. But we still are going to have nice, like the corn is just coming on. So it's kind of fascinating to live here over California and see, the difference in the growing season. But I do have to tell you, I am missing my easy access to California produce. The strawberries have not been great this year. The local peaches have been amazing, but strawberries, it's really hard to get good avocados here. So yeah, some of the things I get a little grumbly about, missing from California for sure. And the beach and the sunshine, I would add to that too. Okay, so Mr. Owl's looking a little bit better there. So snowy owls, or these barn owls, have these just really beautiful white faces. And I may have to come in and do this with poscas because I'm not quite having that control that I want with the brush there, but we're getting a start on our little owl. And I'm thinking her blouse maybe needs some polka dots. And what did I do? I got these new cool tools that I put away somewhere. I don't know if any of these, I think I showed these last week, but these are often called clay shapers. And these were, I just happened to stumble across them at Joann's when we were buying fabric with my daughter. So they have rubber tips on them and they're really fun for mark making. They're great for dot art. They're great for making little individual lines. This one has a really beautiful sharp line, but I love this one. I also have some acrylic ones that a friend of mine made in a variety of different shapes that are great for making dots too. But I'm thinking I'm going to get some dots on her blouse and I'm going to do them in white first and then I will come back and add in. So these are not quite, it's not quite round. It's kind of a funky shape and I can clean it up later. I have some really big ones. I was at an event called Tangle You in Santa Fe, New Mexico years and years ago. It's been a really long time. And we were staying in this wonderful hotel right in the old downtown. And they have in the summers an artist in residence. And they had this lady doing these huge, really beautiful abstract dot art painting. She must have had just the patience of a saint for the size of the work that she was doing and the number of just dots that she was making, but she was using these clay shapers to make them. And so I ended up getting, of course, a set of them, as did many others of us, and going through a bit of a large dot painting phase, doing a bunch of mandalas in dot art. And okay, that one is not working there. And I have some really big ones with really long stems. What do you call this part of a paintbrush? I don't know, but they're really long, and so I like those maybe a little bit better, but it's always fun to get some new things to test and dry. Start giving our owl there. And it's always fun to test new tools. I haven't quite figured out these particular ones yet. And it's, one of those moments where I need to just get a page in my journal going and have some fun just testing all the different shapes. And I'm thinking I want maybe a moon and some really simple stars in the background. Just a little, since we have an owl here, maybe we've got some nighttime action. And as I've started to continue the process of painting, I was really focused on those faces in the beginning and just sort of getting comfortable with the faces. And now I'm noticing I'm wanting there to be a little bit more of a story, a little bit more symbology or imagery in addition to the faces. So I might be going back to some of them and adding to them. I'm just going to put some little sparkles here in the background. So she's feeling close to done, and it's going to be time to get the posca markers out and add lots of detail. And so I will probably just set her aside for a few minutes and go work on some of the other faces. And I'm enjoying the process of drawing on the faces, or painting the backgrounds, drawing the faces, a whole bunch of them, painting the faces, let them get nice and dry, then coming back in with the detail work. And it's speeding up the process a little bit, but it's also, I think, making the work feel a little bit more cohesive as I go along the path and the journey here. And in my retreat that I led this weekend, because I've been having fun with these faces, I ended up painting a really large one in a self-portrait that turned out fun and had more of that story imagery in it. And so I'm like, okay, so I feel like I keep just getting a little bit closer all the time to my own voice, my own style. And just remember when you're looking for your style, it just takes time and practice. And there's something about having worked with the sort of consistency of the faces themselves that lent itself, rather than painting a whole lot of different subjects, that just kind of staying mindful, like not having to make decisions about subject matter helped. Okay, feeling pretty happy with her face. She's probably going to get a few. It was a wonderful group, Marion. I agree. Thank you for being there. Just a lovely, lovely group of women. Okay, so I'm going to set her aside to just dry for a minute, and let's work on this face, which feels kind of fun. And there's an angel on the head. I saw someone else that had a similar drawing that I was inspired by. So again, always sort of changing those things up and making them my own. And get some more color down in the background. I want to use up some of this green while it's still wet on the page. And this was one that started with some collage elements underneath, and I can still see a little bit of that collage underneath, but not too much of it. That's okay. And it just gives me some, again, that different texture. So noticing the difference between painting over the texture of the collage. So it was fun to experiment with the collage, and in these little tiny small things, I don't think I benefited from the collage. Now, don't get me wrong, I love adding collage to my art journal pages, but not on these little cards. So I won't add collage to any more of them in this set. Just carefully going around that little drawing there. And then we'll come in and just get some of that green down. And you'll notice that I'm going to, in some cases, just paint right over even the tops of the black lines. They're there as guidelines. They don't need to stay put all the way through to the end. And I still have some wet green on my brush here, so maybe I'll just come in. The brush is way too big for those little trees, but I'm thinking these rays are going to end up being different colors, but I'll just start building up some color. the more patient I am with building the layers, I think ultimately the more interesting the faces get, which is maybe where my style, diverges from more traditional folk art, which is really pretty simple. All right. And I keep going through lots of yellow. And I'm going to want to brighten up this face, which is going to mean coming in and getting some white down in a few different places so that I can layer up that paint on top of it. Because what I've discovered is if I, leave that blue as the base color, all my faces ended up just looking a little too dark. And if I want to brighten them up, it's really helpful to come in. And there's a spiral over there, but that spiral didn't get the pen on it yet. Even just adding the white, we're starting to brighten that face up quite a bit. And again, that white's all going to get covered up, but it's going to help me in the long run. And I'm wondering if I just add a little white to my yellow. I'm going to create a more opaque yellow. And what's been surprising to me in this whole journey is normally my inner critic is pretty loud and gets very judgy when I'm working on painting faces. And I think because I've practiced faces quite a bit over the last few years, I wouldn't say painting faces is my favorite thing, or I would say it wasn't my favorite thing until I started this project and realized that, all of that practice that I've been putting in, the drawing practice, has really made a difference. Not saying by any means I'm an expert, but just noticing that how I feel about my relationship with drawing and painting faces has changed a lot from since I started this project. So what I can tell you about my experience so far is that just my commitment to practicing has made a big difference. And it's funny because it's something that I have taught my clients for a long time in the business world when I was doing business coaching. Was the secret to growing a business is consistency. Showing up same place, same time, same message, same colors, right? There's so much that's similar about growing a business or growing your voice as an artist as well. They're both very creative endeavors for sure. And that being consistent with the palette, being consistent with the practice of drawing first, like not feeling that pressure of going straight from my head to the cards, but taking the time to do the drawing practice in my journal first has made a world of difference. And I find so often as we get older that we've lost our capacity for practice, for being willing to take our time, that we have this tremendous expectation that we put on ourselves. Very Avatar looking, and maybe because of the blue, like Avatar, the movie Avatar, or it looks like an avatar. But we put so much pressure on ourselves to get it right the first time, to get it perfect, that first time, and the more that we're willing to slow the process down, practice our consistency, the better we're going to get and the easier it's going to be to find our own creative voice. And I've always resisted that idea of like needing to find, a particular recognizable style of art because I love so many different types of art making. And so I start to think about, well, how can I take the things that I love about folk art and bring them in to whatever kind of art I'm working on? How can I bring those elements in? We'll see if it stays blue, Marion. So I seem to be covering up a lot of the blue, but I don't want to cover up all that blue. Oh, I got a little something something hanging off the end of my brush there. So I'm just going to paint right over that eyeball. I'll still be able to see it through well enough. Bring some of that white back, little bits of highlights, maybe some little highlights here. So I'm feeling like I'm going to have a lot of fun with the poscas on this one and bring maybe a lot of just sort of playful detail in with the poscas on this one. Need some brighter blue. And I'm mixing with my brush because I'm mixing, small amounts of paint, but you're generally, way better off to do your mixing with a palette knife. It's easier on your brushes, but, again, when you're working on these little small amounts of paint, to give some character to our angel up there as well. Okay, I'm liking that brighter blue there. It's funny, I've noticed at the end of each of my sessions that so I have a lot of blue backgrounds. I think primarily because I always end up with more blue left on my palette than any of the other colors. All right, that one's feeling really fun. It needs the black brought back, and it's time, I think, to come in with the poscas to figure out that next stage. So we have two that are in that nice place of, okay, what's next? And I'm going to start bringing some color into this one here. And this reminds me of the character. I don't remember her name. Brad's always better about remembering her names. I don't remember the actor's name, but in the movie Doctor Strange with Benedict Cumberbatch, there was the sort of wizard priestess woman who takes him in and trains him, and that he eventually, inherits from her. And somehow she kind of reminds me of that character. I definitely like blue and yellow together. I feel like they're not eh, complementary colors, but there's something about the two of them together. And I think also because this has that lighter yellow background that these colors are just showing up more vibrant on the card than they were on the blue background, which is just a good thing to note. And as I go forward with the other half of the deck, that I would benefit from starting with a lighter background. And again, the joy has been in the journey of making all of these discoveries that I wouldn't have made if I hadn't just practiced. I actually threw a couple of cards away that I'm like, no, I can't fix them. They don't fit. They didn't work. So I released them. I had one, actually, this face and style that was one of the ones, and I'm like, okay, what's not working about it? Because I loved the face and it was just too small on the card. She wasn't big enough, so I let that one go and drew that face again, but much larger. So like I'm still just a little bit in awe of how this simple practice of drawing and painting these faces has had a big impact. And I don't think I've quite drawn all 32 yet, but I still have quite a few in my journal that I've hand drawn that I haven't transferred to cards yet. So one of my goals would be to just get the backgrounds painted and, maybe in the evening while I'm sitting watching TV to have some fun just doing the drawing of the faces on the card because that's, one of the parts that takes time. Okay, let's get some more pink going here. And I'm liking these brighter colors as well on this yellow background. So just noticing some mornings I'm drawn to the darker colors, some to the brighter colors, and this morning it seems to be those brighter colors. Love her kind of funky third eye there. And then the just repeating the colors around the pattern for again that consistency. I say this a lot, but it's the thing that ends up making your work look better. And I'm working on a very large commission painting. It's 24 by 36 inches. And I'm doing the same thing there. So I was painting mountains and sunrise this morning and, making sure that I was bringing some of the browns and some of the lights and highlights of the sun into other parts of the painting as well. So these working on these little teeny small cards is a great teacher that can help you learn more about painting in general and then be able to take that, what you've learned, into something bigger. So when you're struggling with something or wanting to learn something new, work small. Okay, let's get this orange a little darker here. Interesting, all the other ones are really vibrant and she's coming out kind of pastel-y today. And again, I'm just, sort of following the intuition here. I'm not trying to drive the process. One of my friends who's a spiritual mentor, she calls it doing what presents. Like just doing what the next thing is. And that's kind of how I'm feeling about this painting process today is I'm just doing what presents. So looking at the paint on my palette, the spaces on the card. I'm not making a lot of decisions. See if we can get in behind these trees here with some of this darker blue, and then we'll work on bringing those trees out. How am I doing for time? We're doing good. The other thing I like about doing it at 7 a.m. is that when I do it at 8, I often have meetings or clients or things at 9 o'clock, and so I end up feeling a little more rushed. And this way I feel like I have a little more leisure time in the morning for walk and breakfast, and I love getting up early and having just a long, luscious morning of time to myself, time for my art. And I've gotten a little bit out of my reading habit lately, and I have a huge stack of books waiting to be read. And I think summer, there's definitely that sort of desire to be outside more as well. And so now that it's winter, I'm like, okay. Especially once it gets really cold, and then I tend to go for walks later in the day when it finally warms up a bit. All right, she's coming together nicely. I think one of the things that I'm really enjoying is how different each one of these is from the other. While there are similarities in style, similarities in palette, my intention is to have each of them end up with its own personality. So I don't want any of them to end up looking too much the same, because for me that's one of the magical parts about an oracle deck. While all the cards in the deck seem like family because of the cohesiveness of style, each card has a personality of its own. All right, little tiny brushes are the best. And also when working in these really, really small spots, a really dry brush. So I'm making sure that I get my brush really dry, because otherwise that paint is going to end up going places where I don't want it to go. So I noticed, in that I put that brush down and water was up here, and dribbling down. So being very mindful to, and I could do this with a posca here too, but we'll see. It ends up being neater with the posca. I'll probably come back in and touch it up, but also just getting that white in there helps me see. Work on my hand control a bit. Bring those eyes to life a little bit. It's amazing how adding just those little pops of white in a few places can really dramatically change a piece. Add those highlights. And then when I add the highlights, it reminds me to look for the contrast and where do I need more darks as well. Where did you post them, Blanca? And I'll go look for them. Are they on your Instagram page? You told me about them, but I don't know if I've seen them, but I'm happy to go look at them. Okay, so this is ready for the black again. Does anybody have any fun plans for Labor Day weekend? My husband and I decided on Friday we're going to go take the day and drive up into Rocky Mountain National Park and up over Trail Ridge Road, which used to be one of the highest roads in the world. I don't think it is anymore, but it used to be. And over through all of Rocky Mountain National Park to the other side. And it'll probably be crazy busy, but that's okay. So you posted them. Okay, I'll look for the hashtag on Instagram, Blanca. I haven't been on social media too much lately. Now you've got me all curious and I can't wait to go look at them and see what you created. Just trying to clean up around those edges of the trees, and the black will help clean it up too, but just noticing where some of the, colors kind of showing through and just cleaning up some of those edges. All right, I will definitely go take a look. I'm going to see if I can just come in, maybe bring some yellow back. That's what she needs. It's just a little bit of brightening up here. Maybe a little bit of that yellow here as well. I still have a lot of paint on my palette. So usually I will just go use up all that paint and paint some backgrounds. Okay, I like that better than the orange. Awesome. So she's definitely ready for black. I love how you follow along, Blanca, but you also tend to always make things your own as well. So it never feels like a copy because you have a good sense of, making things your own. And copying is how we all start. If you guys knew how many classes that I've taken in the last decade, how many, teachers I've studied with, how many books that I've read, and how many notebooks I filled. It's a lot. Yeah, everything's just feeling like it needs a little bit of brightening up today, so I'm liking that little bit of brighter yellow. Okay, so those all need to get super dry before we go on. And I have some extra cards where I've just scraped some little bit of paint on. This one has some lovely collage in the background, so it feels ready to draw on. This one does not. This one has a face that I started, and I noticed apparently when I was drawing these that I went on this trend with these stripes, so I'm thinking I don't want that, but I'm gonna grab my journal here, and I think I'll draw one more face today and get some paint on it, and then they'll be ready for some detailed work. So I don't want to put this down in the paint, but, and I've shared this before, I've had a lot of fun with the just practicing drawing the faces. Ended up sort of loving these really abstract ones. So loved this one. And I'm sure that one that's there, okay, I think she was the one that sort of inspired this drawing, and that was supposed to be her hair in the background. So I'm going to come in and give her some features in here. And it looks like maybe I started by, I think I drawing on this maybe with some chalk in the background, and the chalk didn't work. It kind of got all covered up, but I can kind of see where I was going. But let's see if we can't. And then she has kind of these nice ears sticking out here. And then she has some big, beautiful hoop earrings. And then always just remembering it's, you know, take your time to get those lines in there, right? So I'm noticing that that eye is way too high up on the face, and that's partially, you know, her hair is actually kind of over her forehead that way. And so this would actually be eyelashes, or excuse me, eyebrows. And her eyes are more down here, which makes sense. We're just seeing that, you know, top of her ear there. Again, you know, making sure that the space between the eyes is the same width as the eyes helps to create that proportional look in our face. And so we divide the face in half this way and half this way. And then from the eye to the chin, we have the nose and then the mouth. So the more, and now I'm zoomed way out and you guys can't see that. And so now this feels like this can be hair. And now I know where her chin, the you know, roundness of her chin needs to be here. I love she has a beautiful full mouth, and you can see my pencil is pulling up some of the paint underneath. This was one that had some oil paint, and that oil paint, you know, really acts as a resist on the page. And she just has kind of a cute little button nose there. And remember that the corners of the mouth come down from about the center point of the eye. So it feels like we're getting a better sense, and then getting that kind of that line of that neck going. She'll probably have a blouse there. And I've also discovered that I really always forget about pens that I love, and then have so many of them and completely forget about them. So one that I love is made by Tombow, and it's called a Fuden no Soki, and it has this just really wonderful sort of bendy, flowy tip that just makes the most wonderful lines of all different kinds. And so that's been a favorite pen. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of get her hairline in there. And then we're just going to kind of see part of her face on that side. And I'm more or less sticking, with those same lines that I had at the beginning. And even if I end up painting over a lot of these lines, they give me a guide. So I need to bring her ear down quite a bit. That ear is up way too high. And then she's going to have these big loop earrings, which we can, on this side, we can't see her ear, but we can still see the bottom of that nice loop earring. And I'm thinking she's going to be gazing down sort of thoughtfully. I'm going to give her kind of just a little bit of a button nose. And there we have a face coming together. So I'm getting a lot more confident and faster with the faces as well. And then I'll figure out what I want to do with her hair and the rest of what's happening here. But I'm kind of just intuitively sensing that there's going to be a heart here in her sort of third eye space. And we'll kind of see where we go next, but at least I have, something on the page that I've started to respond to. So I didn't finish anything, but we have lots of things in progress, which is what I'm kind of noticing. So, this one's ready for some detail work. This one's ready to come in with that bolder black and sort of bring the face back. And this one as well too. So I'm going to grab my posca here. And I'm excited because I have an hour-long coffee chat with one of my dear girlfriends in California today. And I always tend to make art on while we chit chat over Zoom. And so I'm going to have another hour to just continue to work on these today. And that's been kind of my biggest challenge because I have this and I don't know, I have a few art projects in process right now. And this one is fun, but it's not a priority. But I find myself wanting to work on this one. I really need to work on that commission. And I have a dear friend who is an amazing painter who's going to come up on Sunday and spend some time with me here in the studio and have a painting date. So there's something about creating art together in community that I know for me is very inspiring and helps me stay motivated. It's one of the reasons that I love to lead live and online retreats as well, is just to create that space for people to make art together. And I do still have a few spots remaining for my Tree of Life retreat happening the last weekend in October. And you can find that retreat, Wild Creative Abandon, at minette.teachable.com, minette.teachable.com. And our theme for this time is the Tree of Life, which is one of my favorite symbols. And we're going to really focus in on watercolor for this retreat and collage. So one of my friends who's coming to participate is a stationer, and she's going to laser cut all kinds of leaves, which I'm super excited. And my friend Sherry, who does a lot of work around soil and nutrition and flavor, is going to come give a talk about the tree as a metaphor for our connection to earth and nutrients. And so I have all kinds of fun things planned that I'm super excited about. All right, it's amazing how just adding these black lines sort of bring them to life again. Okay, that's way too silly of a face, but it'll do for now. Okay, so I'm going to add the black lines to this one, and then I will call it done for today. So remember the new schedule: Tuesday and Thursday mornings at 7 a.m. Mountain Time. That's 6 a.m. on the East Coast and 9 a.m. over on the, did I say that right? On the 6 a.m. on the West Coast, 9 a.m. on the East Coast. And then I'm going to add an evening session because I have a lot of people in my community who work. So we're going to do 5 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 4 on the West Coast and 7 on the East Coast on Wednesdays. So Tuesday, Thursday at 7 a.m. Mountain and Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Mountain. And I will probably be back in my PJs because I love getting into my PJs at the end of a work day, and I might not. My husband laughs at me because I'll go, especially if I've been out somewhere and we're dressed up for something, and I'll just go get right back into my PJs. And I recently got some new PJs. I can't wait for it to get just a little bit cooler so I can wear my new pajamas. Painting in my PJs is a good reason to go buy more pajamas too, because, not that I need reasons to have more pajamas, but I also am a creature of habit and comfort, and I usually find a pair I love and wear the same pair over and over and over again. All right, so she's coming along nicely. Just again, this is one of my favorite parts, is just watching how adding those black lines just sort of brings everything to life. It helps me fix things, see where the lines go, or like this mouth is not nearly big enough here on this side. So we're going to fix that up a little bit. I'm not trying to make them super realistic, but I am trying to make them proportional, when except when I want to intentionally make them more cubist. Hey, Tori. You have a aqua aerobics class at this time, and that was another reason I added that, evening time. So come when you can. Great to have you here always. And I was looking at the local gym where my husband goes, because I do love the aqua aerobics classes. They're so fun. And the only time they are offering those kind of classes here is like right in the middle of my workday, which tells you something about who the audience is for those, I guess. And so I could take an hour to go to the class, no problem, but it's the driving time, the showering time, all the extra time that goes with it. Okay, so these all feel really, really good. Love where they're at. I started at the new time today. I was going to wait till next week, but then realized in my email that went out yesterday I didn't clarify, so I went ahead and started at the new time today. So I made progress on a few different things, a little bit of drawing, a little bit of painting. So a lot that are just ready for those final details. And thanks for those who joined me. Apologies to those that, I did start at my new time today, and I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Mountain Time and Thursday at 7 a.m. Mountain Time. Have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone. As always, thank you for joining me live. Thank you for watching the replay. It's always delightful here to yeah, it did end up looking like a braid. I wasn't sure where I was going with it, but I'm pretty happy with it. It needs a little cleanup and time for a little more detail everywhere. But thank you for joining me live. Thank you for watching the replay, and I will see you guys all soon. Have an absolutely beautiful rest of your day and enjoy the rest of the warm summer before, well, here in Colorado, before it's all gone. So talk to you all soon. Bye bye.